Hello and welcome to the Knitmancy Podcast. I am your host, Valentina, coming at you from just south of Richmond, Virginia. And it is hot outside. And I have a lot of things to talk about what's going on in the world writ large and also here in Richmond. I mean, yeah, I know I'm south of Richmond, but I'm close enough that it matters to me. So before we hop into that, and I've got things to show. And we'll leave the chat for the end just so I can process how I'm going to say it in a well thought out way, right? So, got things to show you, and you can find all of my social medias down below. A quick glance at that is you can find me on Ravelry as Knittermancer. You can find me as Middle of the Madness on Instagram, and you can find me on Tumblr and Twitch as gnollprincess. I stream pretty much every day starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time going until about 4 or 4:30. I am hoping to adjust those times sometime soon. We play a lot of video games. And when my camera's on, you can catch me knitting. So, let's hop into things, and I'm sure I'm going to touch on some stuff as we go through about what's going on in the world because, wow, it's been a week. So, first things first, I finished another quadrant of my hue shift afghan. This is quadrant number 3 of 4, and as I said, I was going to finish it. So I'm going to start quadrant 4 today. I'm not going to rush myself. I actually had something, and I'm filming this later in the day than I normally do. Also, I don't have makeup on, because you should not wear makeup with your mask. In case you didn't know, you don't want to be getting it in the long run. It does more damage to your reusable masks than worthwhile. So the quadrant is done. This is the cool color. I still have to weave in the ends that I will sit down and do in an evening. That won't take me too long. I'll probably wait until I have the final quadrant done, and then I'll just do that all in one go, and then I will seam them up, do the border, sew the two halves together and finish up the border. So hue shift afghan, I had got my kit from Knit Picks, and it is by Karen Daimler Lawrence. I'll check that and make sure it's right, and as always, all of the patterns are down below along with, if not the color name, then the yarn base. Because I got a kit, I'm not going to look up all the colors every single time, and every kit everyone's going to want a different kit, I'm sure. I like the rainbow one. And I also have returning and with progress, and I might, because now I have something to stick on it that matches actually. So I have my Hermione's Everyday Sock. I have put in the heel and the heel turn. I am working now on the gusset. Since this is bag knitting, it doesn't get a whole lot done on it normally. It is in, that's the ball band right there, Chromatic Yarns Don't Be a Sad Bear on Merino Sock. I really like the colorway. I like where it's coming from too. And it's of course on my size 1 9-inch circulars from Chiagu. So my sock. The pattern is Erica Luder. I'm not mistaken. The final thing I'm still working on, and it's been sitting because I've been thinking. Hello once again, Finnegan. So this is the Navajo churro I've been working on. As you can see, my bobbin is almost full. I think I am going to put some more on it, and then I'm going to chain ply. Yes, that is my plan. But as I said, I think I'm not going to wash the rest of it, because even though it's hot outside, there's also bugs. And because it's wool, bugs, I don't want to take any risks. There is something arguing about me. That can leave me alone. Okay, so that is all of that. So I'm going to move into things that I just picked up, which is why I waited till later in the day, because I knew that I was going to go pick up some things. And I think this will kind of blend into where we're going. So I'm of the see some of it right there. I'm of the mindset of trying to buy for a project. And as I go through this, I'll explain everything that I got. So the first thing, it's one of my favorite commercial sock yarns. It's the West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply. I got it in Cayenne. I guess it's color 510. Which they put on here that it says Cayenne, so it might be like cayenne pepper or something. So I have color 510, which is not nearly as bright as that is showing. It's almost pink. It is showing a lot brighter up on there than it is, like, really. So, Cayenne. And then, same yarn in the 0600 or poppy seed color, which is gray. So, these are going to become a pair of the, I think they're called anarchist socks. They're not anarchist, they're the anarchy socks out of Subversive Socks. So I needed a red. I was hoping to find a black, but I didn't. Gray works. I was also hoping that maybe one of these could have been a hand-dyed yarn, but neither of them are, and that's fine with me, because this means that I know these socks will hold up very well. And I really wanted to make these socks, especially since of all of the protests and stuff going on, and having a way about me that is very punky, anarcho-punk sort of stuff. Like, it was a deal. So I got those, and I just filled this bag up. This was all in a paper bag, which got handed to the dog, and he destroyed promptly, as he does. But this is all from Center of the Yarniverse. It's where I got those, and it's where I got everything in this bag. So I will go through the bag just as I pull things out. That's what I'll talk about. So actually, these first two things are for the same project, but different styles. So I have some Yarn Hero in their color mix sock in Radioactive, and Urban Girl Yarns in her Virginia. Yes, she calls this her Virginia base, in the color Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So this one's got a thing. But both of these I had gotten to make two separate of the Secret Summer Crop or whatever. What by Jessie Maid. It's the newest pattern that she put out. I think it's the Secret Summer Crop. And also I've just been wanting this colorway for a while, but I could not figure out what I wanted to do with it, so I would make a good one. It's bright green. Green is a color I gravitate toward. This was more of a thought. First off, two of my favorite dyers. Well, my number one favorite hand dyer is Neighborhood Fiber Company. It's a little bit more mainstream, I think. And that's not to say like the yarn itself, but I feel like Neighborhood Fiber Company is a little bit more mainstream. Very popular normally. You know, it's a black-owned brand, black-owned dyer. Same with Urban Girl Yarns. She's based, as far as I know, she's still based in Richmond, which, again, is another important thing. And, of course, a black-owned brand, especially with everything going on in the world and a lot of cops out there who are abusing power and harming people they're supposed to be protecting, and you know, it's not right. It's not right. I myself am a little bit on the edge of powerless to do really anything, but I studied I studied history. I'm under no illusion that we are a racist, anti-racist country. There we go. I'm very aware of how politics are. I'm very aware of, again, I studied 19th century America, so I understand. I understand that this didn't just happen out of the blue. It's a systemic issue that we need to work on as a country. Black Lives Matter. I mean, to me, that's a given. You know? Black Lives Matter. Everyone deserves the right to live and deserves equal rights. It's what this country kind of tried to build itself on with the all men created equal, liberty and justice for all. So I stand with everyone who is able to protest. I stand with everyone who, you know, was wrongly treated by the cops. I'm all for a lot of these bail funds. I'm all for a lot of these things. I understand why people were rioting and why people iffy on the looting. But I know that, you know, sometimes things get crazy and people just, you're there. I understand. I want to put myself out there as if you feel the need to direct somebody who needs to talk about the Civil War. There's a lot of falsities that I'm sure people are trying to say about the Civil War right now, because always, and I have a feeling about the statues, and I'm glad about some of the news that I've heard, but I'll touch more on that later. Just know this is where I stand. This is the hill I will die on. This is icky. Now, wait 1 second for that. And then I also got Queensland Collection Rainbow Beach in Moonwind, which is a color. I have 2 of these. They're showing a lot more red on screen, but it is a Barber Poli. I mean, I guess it kind of shifts because you do have more. Yeah, it's got a little bit of shifting in it, kind of the same way that like the remix sock does, but because this one's all deeper colors. Yeah, so I got 2 of Moonwind and 3 of the Rainbow Beach and Starfish, which some of the colors in this and some of the colors in this go really well together. Because there's a sweater pattern I have in mind, and I don't want to talk exclusively about it, but because I have the pattern, I feel it's better to use it than to not. Because I'm not sure where the designer stands on things, so this might be a sweater that just magically happens, and then you see it. We will see. But yes, I have. Probably could change my mind on what sweater it is too, but we will see, because this is a sport weight, so I might have to. We will see. So I have 3 of the Starfish and 2 of the Moonwind. Yeah, they look like the Starfish comes off like in person very. It dances that line between blue and gray really well. That's all of the yarn in the bag. That's a lot of yarn. Let me now shuffle it back into the bag. Okay. Put these back in there too. Okay. And then they were giving out a little treat bag, and so it's got a crunch bar, just a little chocolate bar with like popped rice, like Rice Krispies, right? Creamy milk chocolate with crisp rice, yeah, like Rice Krispies candy. They have a little card, just says thank you for your purchase, and it's got like this little gummy bear. Yeah, this little gummy bear. He's gonna go on my socks, I think. bookmark where I am currently, so when I go, I can do this YouTube-y thing. There we go. Except he's black, so he doesn't show up really well. Also, it's not focusing. Yeah, he's like a little black gummy bear. It's a little plastic gummy bear. Yeah, like resin or something. So I'm going to take him off, and I'm probably going to put him on my Don't Be a Sad Bear socks. And then they also gave me a little pack of tea, green tea. Which, me and green tea is the only way I can drink it is cold. Interesting fact. So, that is all of the yarn stuff, crafty stuff, the fiber stuff. Now on to the other stuff. Dog is licking himself outside. I'm going to play with him. It's far too hot for him to really be outside for long periods of time because I don't know if I've mentioned, but he's like a pit bull mix. He might be more pit bull than mix, but we're not entirely sure. He's chewing on something. I'll figure it out in a second. But yeah, as I've mentioned before, I live very close to Richmond. I'm approximately 30 minutes out of Richmond. Fiance works in Richmond. It takes him roughly 30-ish minutes to get home. Yeah, so I'd say we're about 30 minutes out of Richmond. So Richmond's our nearest big city. Technically I'm in a city, but it doesn't feel like a city. I could have discussions on how like just different towns don't, or different communities just don't feel like how they are qualified, like named. So I'm in a city. Doesn't feel like a city. It feels like suburbs to a city. Doesn't feel like a city. So our biggest thing is, again, my fiance does work in Richmond. Not far off of like the main street, Broad Street, but like far enough away from the river. Yeah. So he's far enough removed that he's not like in city proper, but also he's close enough to the city to be considered in the city. And so Richmond has been a fixture in my life for, God, a while. 2010, 2009, 2008, 2007, 2006, 2005 is when my family moved down here originally, and I'm turning 25 this year. Yeah, 2005, 2006. So I've been down here about 15 years-ish. Which feels weird for somebody who's lived a lot of life, or before that time has spent a lot of time moving around, and also spent quite a bit of time in like Northern Virginia, Manassas area, and of course I was in school in Shepherdstown, so it's a lot of chair fluff on the floor. The city means a lot to me. All of my tattoos, all of my piercings have been done here in Richmond, so there's quite a few shops that going forward I will continue to support, like Black Rabbit and all that. But we did have the protests in Richmond. We did have, got a little bit spicy there a couple of times. People were arrested. We had the curfew for like 2 days, and it's been lifted now. The mayor of Richmond walked with one of the protests. For the most part, our protests were peaceful. Cops were kind of sketchy, though. I myself didn't go just because I did not have somebody who I could safely go with. No judgment would go with, because I'm uncomfortable doing things like that alone. Big things like that. Very scary. But since it's come forth what's happening to the murder of George Floyd and everyone who sat there and did nothing, out of this, Richmond has decided that they are going to take down some of their Confederate statues. Which is cool, because a lot of the statues are not nearly as old as people would want to think. Most of them went up in reaction to civil rights movements, 60s, 70s. And I'm not mad they're coming down. I've studied the history. I know that these people, like, history is very biased. Depending on what you read, history is very biased. And there are things that we could say are all day long and dispute and all that, but not mad. As good as a soldier as we could say some people are, you have to remember that eventually they were on the wrong side of history, and this is what happens when a racist society tries to glorify people who don't deserve it. Right? Yeah. At the end of the day, yeah. They're putting up a committee to have civilians kind of review the police. So if the police are out of line, you have civilians keeping them in check, which is great. There's a couple of other things I know. I know that there's going around that we shouldn't be charging those people who were arrested for protesting. And actually, it's not just the city of Richmond. Governor Northam decided we should take down our statues. And there are people, of course, who are like, but you can't do that. But there's only so many ways you can interpret it. Part of what I did, part of my studies was the interpretation. So you have the statue, and Antietam is an excellent example of this. He had a guy who put up a statue of Robert E. Lee in a place where Robert E. Lee never was, and like the statue is very inaccurate for the Civil War. So one option is you take the statue down, which a lot of places have done, and there's a bunch of different ways you can do that. You can take just the statue down and leave the pedestal it was on, which that has its own whole thing. Or you can leave it and you can interpret it. So without interpretation from a historian, somebody who is trained in the field, who knows what they're talking about, anyone can say anything about that statue. I'm strongly of the belief that you really should not be sitting here toting around any version of the Confederate flag, even though I know in Hollywood Cemetery, which is one of my favorite places to visit, because I'm a little bit creepy, we all know this, whole concept of this podcast name comes from a necromancer who is a death wizard, a wizard who deals with dead things. But it has a giant pyramid put up by the Daughters of the Confederacy, which they're not a good organization. I can understand if you're educating and you're using that name, but you're also this is an organization that has put out false information before and tried to perpetuate the ideas that are very inappropriate. But yeah, it's Confederate. A lot of it's Confederate. I can go through the cemetery and pick out, people from Texas, people from North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Virginia, Alabama. They're Confederate. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. They're Confederate. And there's an entire section that I cringe a little bit. Where they have So, easiest way to say is you have the President's Circle, which is up on a hill, and I think it's James Madison or James Monroe. I Google this because I can. Not Madison, Monroe. It's got to be Monroe. We'll Google this, so you have to Bear with me. Okay, it is James Monroe. So James Monroe, he's got this big, like, cathedral-looking situation up in the President's Circle, and it's like circle-based, and there's some other graves, other people, other famous people, other presidents. And then, like, you walk down the hill, so you're walking parallel to the James River. You walk down the hill, and back in this corner where there's, like, nothing, is just this circle for the President of the Confederacy. His name is escaping me because I'm having a moment. Jefferson Davis. Okay, yeah. So you go down. Back in this corner, there's like very little else down there. There's a couple other interesting graves. And then you have this whole like situation for Jefferson Davis. And okay, I understand, but the man was a fucking racist. No ifs, ands, or buts. Confederacy was racist. I'm in the state of Virginia. We were part of the Confederacy. Yeah. You get the point. We've made strides since then, clearly. But, so, you can't do a lot with a graveyard. But, you can take down these statues that represent a very racist period in time. I do know that we've made a couple of strides recently in really owning up Arthur Ashe. I think Arthur Ashe is kind of cool. I played tennis for a while, so like I hit the desk and it had a moment. So I know that we recently renamed one road to Arthur Ashe Boulevard, and I know that Richmond's trying to be better. We will see how this goes out. I hope other cities and other places are listening. I know people who clearly are not listening, who still are in points of power that they really shouldn't be, and they need to leave because they don't care about the people. But yeah, I could continue to sit here and rant about the history, but instead I will say if you need to direct somebody to talk to somebody who is qualified to discuss, who has a degree in the Civil War, you're more than welcome to send them to me on Instagram. I might even put down my Twitter if you want to send people there. But really, I'm open to talk about the Civil War with anyone. I'm open to talk about the after effects. I'm open to talking about, what everything from the like Reconstruction up until modern day. If they want to try to make arguments that we are no longer racist, I can talk the history with them. Don't worry. I'm here. I'm also here that if something that I say you need to call me out, please call me out. Let me know. I will try my hardest to learn and do better. But you can't learn and do better if nobody tells you what you've done wrong. So, on that note, I am still going to leave off with the whole be safe. Be safe. Take care of yourself. If you need to take a day off of social media because it's doing you in, take the day off of social media, but do remember what you do offline is just as important as what you do online. Because I don't believe in making my social media revolve around kind of performative acts. It's so much easier to share a post than it is to really do something in your everyday life. And what you do in your everyday life and what society does in their everyday life off of the internet really is going to make the big difference. So I'm going to leave it there. Be safe. Wash your hands. Please wear your mask. Please stand 6 feet away from me. And until next time, take care of yourself. Do what you need to do to learn and be better. Bye.